Hello, I'm Marie-Laure Caille, and welcome to THF Talks. The topic of today's talk is ending the year consciously. So to discuss what it means, how to approach the process, what its benefits are, and also what are some of the difficulties of going through the process. I have with me Maria Kassova. So Maria is an executive coach, a facilitator, a very inspirational woman. She happens to be an associate of the Human Factor and a dear friend of mine. Hello, Maria.
Marie-Laure, thank you. I feel very moved. And thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest to the THF Talks. I find them very interesting, very enriching. So I feel honored to be with you today.
Thank you, Maria. So we'll go through the process of what it means. We'll also look at how to approach it, what we can learn from it, and also how it can help us approach a new year, hopefully with more calm, more peace, and more joy and hope. So before we do that, I'd like to look at how we define this process of ending the year consciously, and why you believe it's important to do so.
I love, to me, ending the year consciously means reviewing the year in terms of what happened, what were some of our successes, what were some of the areas that we failed or did not achieve the results that we wanted, what brought us joy, what were some setbacks. And I love this practice. And I realized in preparation for our talk, I saw that since 2015, at the end of every year, I have been writing in an Excel sheet 108 things which I'm grateful for and loved about the year. And some of those things are actually lessons, things that I learned and not necessarily achieved. And I do this practice also with my coaches, but I do it myself. So I think, and the quote that summarizes the benefit, I think, is Socrates, who said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." So that's my opinion. And I'm curious, what do you think? What's your view?
Well, to follow up on what Socrates said, he said, you know yourself. That's the key to happiness. He's also said you can't know yourself fully, right? So that's kind of part of the process to expand our realm of awareness. I think that's important, right? To live more fully and with more consciousness in everything we do. So for me, that's part of it, to review the year, to ask key questions. Where were we successful? What brought us joy? What kind of choices? What choices did we make? What drove those choices? How important they were? So all of those really key questions that often we just, don't consider. We just zap through the new year just like this because it's easier, right? But to pause, to stop, and to reflect is important in many ways because we can bring more presence, more of us, more life into everything we do. And I believe that it can help us be more present to others and to celebrate and to be grateful. So those are my key points.
Yes.
You said that you've done it for many years now. So, and that you love the process. So I'm curious, I'd like to know how it has helped you concretely over the years, because now you have some sort of track record, right? So you can look back not just at the process itself, but also how the process has helped you and benefited you.
So everything that we do started with an idea. And, my life has been a wonderful nomadic adventure. I have lived in so many countries. And reviewing what worked for me, what made me happy, what made me feel alive, has helped me to set the goals and the vision for what I want to see more of in the next year. So I have one concrete example. I have shared with you from last year. I visited Dubai, as you know, and I really loved the colorfulness, the multicultural environment, the sense of initiative and entrepreneurship, that is very much alive there. And so I decided that I really want to work there. I want to expand my geographical partnerships. And so I'm really pleased to share that I returned from a trip in Saudi Arabia last week where I did an innovation, creativity, and design thinking course with a big company. So that happened, and it's so fulfilling. But it happened because it was a vision. And I had images also of the region. I have images of Dubai. Okay, it wasn't of Saudi Arabia. But really how it helps is, A, to identify what we want more of in our year.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, it has also helped me in the areas where I have felt unhappy or maybe burnt out or maybe a little bit depressed. There was a period when I moved from Singapore to the UK. It helped me realize that I need coaching and I need help to transition, because it was very difficult for me to build a life in the area of coaching and training, because that was a new area for me. So, and also generally, I think when we finish the year with focusing on what worked mostly, or what lessons we learned, as you said, it helps us build that confidence and resilience, and maybe hope that we can create the next year. We're not just drifting randomly in the ocean based on other people's agendas, but we are following our own path and our own values and inner voice in building a life that brings us joy.
So important. Wonderful. I love your answer. One thing, when you were talking about, your success of the past year. So typically with a client, when we go through the process, we'll typically first look at what's the general feeling about the year. What are the dominant emotions? So we start with this, and then the first, I would say, phase of the process, we'll look at the successes. We'll look at what worked. We'll look at the choices we make, and the good choices, at least the ones that turn out to generate success and joy and pleasure and happiness. So how important, according to you, is it to celebrate those successes? Because I found that with some clients, they just skip through that, and they don't even realize the number of successes that they had. Like yesterday, I had a session with a client, and we were going through the process, and I was like, okay, let's review your successes. And he mentioned two, and I've been working with him for some time. And I was like, how about this? And how about that? And I was like, oh, yes. And so from a list of two, we ended up having a list that was much longer. So I found it interesting that we sometimes don't pay attention, we don't pause, we don't celebrate. So how do you do it? How do you celebrate, and why is it important according to you? Because I know you celebrate the successes and the successes of others as well.
Yes, and what you just shared about the work that you did with your client, I do that with my coaching as well. And there are some professionals with whom I have worked for several years now, maybe having 4 or 5 sessions a year. And that's exactly what we do. And it's so interesting that very often I'm the one who reminds them of their own successes. They tend to, the brain is created in a way that it wants to preserve us from being attacked, from failing. So it's so much more natural to focus on what we did not achieve, the mistakes we made, rather than the successes. Mm-hmm. So I think for several reasons, celebrating is huge. First of all, it's great for the confidence. Mm-hmm. It really boosts our sense of self-belief and our faith that we can achieve. And when I say we, I don't mean we alone. I mean we in the company, with our team, together, we can achieve goals. As you know, I studied applied positive psychology in Singapore years ago. And so 3 years ago, I wrote a course in leading with bounded optimism. And it was very much using the methodology and some techniques from applied positive psychology. So one of the tools that we are practicing with participants are 2 things. The 3 W's, what went well. So we suggest before a meeting to start with what went well. Why? Because it creates a safe space. It creates a positive space from which we can generate very good solutions. And the other, actually, 2 things I suggest is to have a to-done list. We all have a to-do list. When was the last time? What did you do? Have you done a to-done list, for example, for this year? These are all the things I achieved since January. I'm curious, have you done it?
Actually, we do it with the team. We just did one just 2 hours ago. What did we do over the past months, and how do we feel about it? So we do it.
So you know how beneficial it is. And my suggestion is, let's have a meeting, which you have had, when we speak with other people, because the benefit of that is not only it gives a wonderful feeling of accomplishment, but also with a view of, let's dissect, what did we do well? How was this result achieved? Did all members of the team work using their strengths? What was the secret for our success? How often did we meet? How did we keep each other accountable, etc.? So really drawing a list and learning from our success as a benchmark, because that's that's as effective, I think, as learning from the mistakes that we make.
Absolutely. And what we add as well is questions about, how do we feel about it? We include an element of emotions, and we also address, how did we support one another, and how can we do that better? How can we show up for each other, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? What can we do differently to be there even more for one another? So definitely something we practice as a team.
Yes. And that is why it shows in the success of THF, actually.
I think that's I hope it's part of the component. But definitely you have a great component.
I mean it. And before we move on, I just want to say that one of my successes that I celebrated and I have put on my map has been the extraordinary ESSEC, the human factor case competitions that we worked on this year, which I think were a phenomenal success. And I feel so proud of the impact that we have created and the solutions that were generated for Decathlon and Sustainea, and the skills that we taught these amazing young people. So this just gives me excitement about next year. So that's why it's good to celebrate. And
we will continue bringing, uplifting the next generation. I would like to before we go to the next topic, to conclude this topic on celebration and successes. What I have recently added to the questions that I ask, I usually ask questions, yes, what are your successes? What do they mean to you? What resources or abilities helped you be successful? So to bring awareness again to the strengths that people have, those internal resources, and to amplify them, to bring more awareness to them. What I have added to the workbook is a question on what brings you joy and happiness in your daily life. And I realize that it's so important because, especially for me, at least as we get older, we have a tendency to say, okay, I've been through that times. I know what the sky looks like. I know what flowers look like. So we tend to, go quickly through simple things, so what we consider simple, and yet to, again, have this space where we pause and say, okay, this is a day, what can you pay attention to? And what could you pay attention to in the future? And for me, I know that's bringing even more density to my daily life. Just to, take my son to school, hold his hand, come back, have a cup of coffee. This is something that I do every day, and that brings me so much joy. And I can have a problem at work or something can go wrong, but at least there is this. So that's something that I'm adding to the work.
Yes, I agree. I think this is so powerful. It's just to celebrate little or simple things. They're not little, they're simple. So, for example, what brings me enormous joy today is that it's Nestor's birthday. My first nephew, he's 17, whom I adore. So we had a conversation early in the morning. And precisely as you said, holding the hand of David, for me, this made my day. And I thought, wow, I'm so happy. And I'm so happy I'm meeting you now. I was returning from the mountains, from Bansko. It's a beautiful town in the mountains in Bulgaria where I often go. I have a little flat there. And as we were driving from there, the sky was so beautiful. It had those purple colors of the sunset. And all of us were just in awe of that beauty.
Mm,
And I felt such a warmth in my heart just noticing it. It brought a smile to our eyes and our hearts. So I agree with you. Little rituals, they really make the essence of life, I think.
absolutely, absolutely. So we've talked about the successes and the joy, the happiness. There's the other side as well. We all experience challenges, disappointments, sometimes losses. So how do you approach the setbacks and the challenges in the discussions that you have with your clients when you review the?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I have had a number of clients, coaching clients who have been going through challenging situations with their colleagues. Sometimes there's lack of understanding or alignment between different departments. I have professional friends who lost their jobs and they have been looking for new opportunities for a while now. So setbacks are very real. And also they have been very real for me because even this year, until the middle of the year, I did not have much work. So there were moments of real anxiety and worry. What am I going to do? So my approach is, first of all, to really accept, not to pretend, okay, but really pause, as you mentioned, be present to the feelings that I experience, the anxiety, the fear. And very often I write down, and I suggest to my clients as well to write down, what do I feel? Everything, literally to externalize it. And then what I have noticed is very helpful is to use Stephen Covey's leadership tool, Circle of Influence, in the 7 habits of the highly effective people. So in our lives, in the lives of those who listen to us, there are so many factors that we don't control. And then economy, politics, financial situations, mergers, acquisitions, restructuring within the company, etc. And then there are factors that we control, which is our attitude, which is the skills that we have, the circle around us of people, those that we love, nature, the little things that we talked about, the ability to be grateful for what we have. And therefore, this is, I think, that is my approach. What can I focus on? And literally write down in a circle, what are the factors that I have control over? And then on that basis, draw a plan. And sometimes I have done that with coaches. In the most difficult moments, I have sought external help, coaches, friends, because it's so important to be able to verbalize things and to gain a different perspective. And also the other thing that has helped me was to remember that in the past I have been able to overcome challenges. There is an inherent resilience, and this too shall pass. And if life is giving this challenge to me or to us, we probably are well equipped to deal with it, even if it's very difficult, even if the process is difficult. And I'm curious, what's your approach?
So just to follow up on one point you made about different perspectives, I think this is always in any difficult situation, whether when you review the year or in other situations, to ask yourself, what is another perspective that I can have on the situation? How can I see things differently? Because it will help you shift a little bit and look at a problem, a challenge, a difficulty from different angles. That's great to consider that you have the choice of your perspective. It's great also to develop empathy, because you might have different stakeholders. So to consider, what is their perspective? How do they see the situation? And to be in the better position afterwards to find a solution. So that's one of the questions that I ask when we review the challenges and the difficulties with clients. So we look at them and I try to help them see the facts. But sometimes it's difficult because there might be a lot of emotions that might be some resentment, some guilt, even if we consider that we failed, right? Because I believe we have such high expectations for ourselves. Professionally and personally, we have KPIs. We have, for our careers, for our health, for our fitness, for how we look, for, or family lives, or finding a partner. So we have all those targets to reach. And inevitably, we will not meet all those targets. Inevitably, we will fail if we consider this failing. So to bring a lot of kindness and compassion to, okay, what worked and where were you less than perfect? When I say perfect with a quote, where were you not matching the ideal version of yourself? And to look at this and to say, okay, is this version of yourself realistic? Where are you and what can you be grateful for? And if you failed or consider that you have failed, if there's still a lot of strong negative emotions attached to it, go into the emotion. That's what coaches can do as well. And this is what I do with clients. And then again, look at the different perspectives and then look at the learning, what you've learned from it, what the client or what I've learned from it, and to grow from this experience. I think we all experience this kind of challenges, and ultimately we can be a better person, be a better more empathy for others as well. So I think this is part of the journey, and to look at this with a lot of compassion and maybe gratitude as well for those challenges. So I help them maybe shed a different light on those experiences.
And I think what you shared is a very powerful tool. I have done the same. In NLP, there is a multiple perspectives exercise. Mm-hmm. So specifically in a conflicting situation, we view and we have a conversation about the situation from the first person, the person who is telling us. Then we guide them through a process when they imagine that they become the other person. Yeah. And we ask certain questions. Then we imagine that they observe that situation in the same room, and we asked some different questions. And finally, the fourth perspective is we invite them to imagine this on a screen far away as a movie, and then ask different questions. So this helps literally see, and in that process, there's so much reframing. And I'm so happy. I'm sure you've heard this from your clients as well, that I have sent this exercise, this script, and I have some clients who are using it in their relationships with their partners. And mm-hmm. and they said that it really has helped understand the different perspectives and therefore reach solutions and not have a conflict that simmers for a long time. Increase the understanding.
Good. Thank you, Maria. So we've looked at the successes, we've looked at the challenges, sometimes the failures, or what we consider failures. Now let's look at the leaders we work with, because we I know you do this and I do this as well. We go through this process with executives. And so how can leaders benefit from this process of reviewing the year and looking at their leadership style? I'd love to know, what kind of questions do you ask, for example, or how you've experienced the process with your clients and how they might have used this process to grow as leaders?
Yes, the questions I ask are probably very similar to yours. And in mine, though, I start with what did you not achieve? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes it's better to get out of the way what the failure was. So the questions are like, where did you not succeed? What did you struggle with? What was challenging for you? And then move to what did you succeed? What were some achievements? What skills, what habits did you develop in the process? And also then I encourage to think, what would you like to let go of? Both as a leader, but also as a team. What are some of the things that didn't work? What do we want to say goodbye to? And always ask them collectively and individually to reflect on what they are grateful for before setting up the goals for the next year. So it's very much a similar process. And it's just so wonderful to do it collectively sometimes. And so I think the skills are to, if I guide the process, I really want to make sure that everybody can have an input, because we know some people would be very easily and keen to share their views. And I think it's important to give everybody a voice. But really, and then, of course, the underlining conclusion is, what did we learn? And what can we replicate next year? And what can we do differently? But there's no blaming. There's no, you did this, you did that. It's all in the spirit of compassion and empathy, as you mentioned, because we're all, to make a mistake is human. And the only way that we can grow is by reviewing, learning, and then applying something different next time.
So you do it with teams as well, not just with individual leaders, right?
I do it with teams and I do it with individual leaders. Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting that sometimes it's harder. I need to, just building on the point we shared earlier on, it's much easier for them to think of where they failed and what they did wrong rather than the successes. So I really insist on, for example, what are 5 successes you had yourself and with the team? And we drill down and we don't move on until we have at least 5 items.
That's a good number, 5. You know, we all have at least 5 successes, so it's a good number. Good. So I'd like now to address the process itself, right? So we've looked at the different components, and of course there's many sub-components and many questions. Now, looking at approaching the process and looking at what could be a challenge, because I've heard from a client, someone in my team as well, Avantika, who said, you know, it's overwhelming. It's a little bit intimidating to approach this whole process. And it is, there are many obstacles. I mean, for me, the first one is taking the time, right? Just finding the time for yourself, for your team, to just stop, pause, and ask the questions. 2 years ago, we actually organized a webinar, I mean, a workshop, an online workshop to be very precise, where we had participants from all parts of the world. And it was beautiful. And we ran the workshop, and we went through the workbook, through the process, and then we also prepared the following year. And one of the first things that people, were actually women, and they said, I'm so happy that I'm taking the time for myself to do that. Because if I hadn't signed up, I would probably just, boom, go through the next year and not pause and not reflect. So taking the time, for me and for many people around me, is the first obstacle, right? So it's like the first step.
Yes.
What are the other challenges or difficulties that you yourself have experienced with the process, or you have maybe clients who have had difficulties with the process?
I have noticed that, if you remember before, when we were in the corporate world, we used to have to make 5-year budgets and really long range plans. And I really think that the difficulties, and it can be overwhelming, how can I even attempt to plan for 3 years when I have no idea what may happen in 2 months' time? And we have seen all the events that have unfolded in the last 3 years. So I think one difficulty is almost finding this exercise as useless. Whatever I do anyway, something else is going to happen. Okay. I think another difficulty, and the solution for that for me is to have a shorter horizon. The other difficulty may be that with the natural propensity of the brain to focus on what didn't work, it's so hard from the position of failing or having mistakes, having a million hats to juggle, not having time to breathe, to really pause and think, what do I want? How do I want to feel? And so I think finding that, shifting the perspective on what do I want to see more in my life, may be challenging for all the reasons, and also what you mentioned, just the time factor is so critical. And I think a few years ago, I discovered, I was listening to Danielle Laporte, who wrote a book, The Desire Map. And she focuses on her concept is that it's more important to focus on how we want to feel,
Mhm.
because sometimes life has a different way of bringing those things that will make us feel, for example, feeling fulfilled, connected, loved, alive, purposeful, meaningful, learning, making a difference. And so if we are also clear with how we want to feel, and then what goals could bring that about, I think that helps to make the process a little bit more easy to go through,
Okay.
demystifies it, because I agree it can be so overwhelming. Where do I want to be in 5 years or 10 years? Or, I'm little, I don't have any power. So the exercise, also the process that we went through with you of discussing successes, lessons, now setting intentions, I think this process helps to gain that clarity that is so
Mhm.
important.
Mhm. 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 And also, I think another obstacle that I've seen going, just to go back to ending the year, I think it's going through the discomfort, right, of looking back and looking at the gap between what we achieved, what we wanted to achieve, the setbacks, and what it means for us, but also the discomfort of successes that we've discussed as well. So facing all those emotions, and it can be overwhelming. And this I completely understand. And how do we do it? Also have the questions sometimes, how do we go deeper? So that's something that can feel uncomfortable and can feel kind of very challenging for people. There is a bit of resistance to kind of protect themselves. So do I really want to look into that? Do I really want to shed a lot of light on that? So this is a challenge that I've seen for some people going through the motion.
And how do you help them overcome that? Because it is
So
very true.
I think it's as a coach, when we do that, I think it's to support and to validate whatever they've experienced, and to say, I'm with you, I understand, this is normal, and to encourage to go deeper. So to create, of course, a safe space, and to be comfortable myself with whatever shows up. I think that's quite important. And as we go and go deeper into these emotions, there is, of course, a moment when we bring people back to the facts, and back to where they are and where they want to go. But feeling comfortable with whatever shows up, that's how I support them, I believe. All right.
Yes.
We're reaching the end, and the end of the process as well. So how do you end the process? So typically it takes 2 hours, 3 hours, it depends with different people, and how much there is to process as well. So how do you conclude a session on ending the year consciously? What do you say? What do you ask? What would be a good conclusion?
I would end, first of all, I would encourage to, ultimately the short answer is to set some goals for the next year, to set the vision.
The next phase.
The next phase, yes. And I love the WIG's wildly improbable goals. And just imagine the magic question. Imagine there was a magic wand, and everything could be possible. The joy on people's faces and on mine as well is just extraordinary. And then when we have the goals, I think ultimately the conclusion is, let's make that not just the wild goals, but also the specific goals that we have identified, and not too many. I don't think we can have a list of 10 goals. It's 2-3 areas. Then explore what resources I have and what help do I need, and how can I achieve that? How can I garner the network of support? And also, what can I do? Maybe the third aspect, to keep my motivation going, because who am I becoming? And I think this is a point that you raised a few times on empathy and compassion, because it is true that there's such a gap between our KPIs and our own harsh judgments towards ourselves, whilst being very lenient and understanding towards others. And then the reality. And so how am I going to be kind to myself when I don't quite fulfill the milestones and I'm a bit behind?
Good. I love the ending. I do this, and I'd like to add a few questions that I typically add. What are you grateful for? I think that's also a good question. And I like to anchor that in what could symbolize this gratitude. So it could be a picture, it could be a song, it could be an object, a letter. So how could you anchor this gratitude into something that's physical and that you can have in front of you? So, and that's not an easy question. I mean, even for myself, if I ask myself this question, it would take me a while to find an answer that I'm happy with. So I still haven't answered the question for a year, by the way. But I believe for me, that's the kind of question that I am this phase. And then of course we go to the following year, but to end the process, gratitude. And I know you're very, you believe in gratitude, and I know you always focus on that as well.
Yeah, I think I jumped the process.
Yes.
I really was very quick, because with my clients, we normally do a review for about an hour and a half. So the process is not so long, but it depends. And it depends if it's a team or not. I love the question. And as you were asking, my collage, first of all, absolutely the power of gratitude. And this is something that I suggest. It's one of the essential tools in the toolbox for my coaches, and essential home fun, writing, keeping a gratitude diary, writing 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I think that has helped me and has helped them to shift that internal mental and emotional state. And I think in my collage, I love that. And if you allow me, I'm going to use it now, because I have more than one image, as you can imagine. But on my collage, there will be the image of my family, my nephews, Luba and Richard. So that's one picture. The sunshine, the mountains, nature, I love that. And maybe an image of dancing, something that symbolizes travel, and something that symbolizes also my friends, moments with my friends. So I don't know yet what the symbol will be, but I really love that. And that is on top of the traditional vision boards, which I have been doing. I love that exercise. So you said you don't have an answer, but I'm going to challenge you. What are some pictures that you would have on your that symbolize for you gratitude for life and for everything that you have?
So I haven't done it yet, but I usually do it in December. If there is one thing I'm grateful for 2023, is the trust. If I have to, use one word, is the trust of my clients, trust of my team, trust of the students. So the trust people put in me and the company. I think that's something that I feel very humble by. So that's something that I'm very grateful for, the trust. So that's my word. I don't know how I will symbolize it yet. What will represent the trust? I'll find something and I'll tell you in a few weeks, I promise. Yes. So we've reached almost the end of our session. My last question was, what are you most grateful for in 2023? But you have already answered that. Is there anything else that you would like to share regarding the process, regarding, how to view the process, how to go through it? Is there anything else that we haven't discussed and that you would like to share?
I would invite our listeners to give themselves an hour, if possibly somewhere outside of home, office, and maybe listen to some nice music and go through that process, because there are such little gems and big gems that can emerge, and insights which will be so useful and bring joy. Because I agree with you. I think we can so easily be swayed to catastrophize about everything and our lives in work. And there's also a lot of good things going on. So probably my tip would be, when you struggle with ideas of what you did well, or what your strengths are, or what are some good habits, maybe you can ask your friends, your colleagues to help you, because you have a lot more than maybe you think you have. So this is my my tips. And one final thing is just to keep remembering what we're grateful for, and to just know that even looking at the sun, looking at the sky, looking at the faces of our favorite people, that's incredible wealth that we hold, and it's accessible all the time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maria. So to conclude, the Human Factor, as we've developed a workbook to guide all of you, if you listen, through the process. So if you've registered for the webinar, you will receive the workbook in your mailbox in the next few days. If you haven't registered for the webinar and you are watching us, you can email us. I think there should be an email in the little box below, or check our website. I think it will be on the website as well, and download the workbook. And if you have any questions, of course, you can always email us. We'll be happy to help you. Thank you so much, Maria, for this very, fulfilling, inspiring conversation. I hope all of you who are listening have enjoyed it and learned from it. It's always a pleasure to talk to Maria. We talk often, and it's great to have this special space, this special time for the two of us to have a conversation on our practice with our clients and to go a little deeper. I'd like to thank Avantika and Crystal, who are part of the THF team, who helped put this together and prepare and make sure everything runs well. So thank you to both of you. And we'll see each other in 2024. We'll publish the program in the next few weeks, so stay tuned, and we will see you soon. Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you, Evan.
And thank you very much, Marie-Laure, and you absolutely deserve the trust. So I look forward to an extraordinary, trustworthy 2024 with you and the team.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.